Next, I'll be introducing Lucas Fralick, who is the program coordinator for the Wyoming Humanities Department, an avid birder, and he is going to be discussing the Wyoming Elections Project.
I was told I only have 12 minutes, so we're going to have to move pretty fast if we're going to get to all 37 of my slides. I'm joking, we only have a few. I had to say that, I know. Yes, hello, thank you, Emma, for that kind introduction, and thank you all for being here. It's a very big deal. These are projects all of us have been working on for quite some time now, and it's kind of cool to be able to show off a little bit. And yes, I am Lucas Fralick. This is the Elections Project. Don't worry about the title. It's just working. I don't know if we're going to stick with it or not, but I think so. It's kind of cool, pretty loose. Hold on. Oh, good. That does work. Okay. So what is it? I get this question a lot. What is the Elections Project? What does it mean? How does it work? So at its core, the basic idea here is that it's going to showcase Wyoming elections, electoral results from all elections, but we'll get to more details, but in the form of charts and maps. So as opposed to just looking at a bunch of numbers, which everyone can get access to, that's the magical thing about this. It's all publicly available, but it's kind of boring to look at. Sorry for you numbers fans, but it's just simply not very compelling just to see numbers. I understand if you're an accountant, I get it, but come on. No offense to accountants. Forgive me, yeah, okay. So the whole idea behind this website would be to present numbers in a compelling fashion in an open resource that's public and accessible to everybody. That includes researchers. I see you nodding, you agree? Yes, researchers, students, teachers, nerds, anybody who is by far interested in wanting to know this information. Now, of course, again, it's publicly available, so you could dive into the state archives and really dig in, but that is notoriously laborious. I love the state archives, by the way. That is a big shout out to them. But it's not their fault that the data they get is just hard to read and find sometimes. And same thing with the Secretary of State's website. It's very handy, but they only go back so far. And of course, all your county clerk's offices should have this information. That's to everyone watching from afar. Hello, your county clerk's office does have this information as well, but you might have to pay, especially if they're a small staff, or it might just be, again, very difficult to get access to. So my whole idea is to communicatively gather all this information, one comprehensive one-stop shop, sort of like the supermarket of election data. Kind of exciting. Yeah, you get it. Absolutely. It's very, very cool. So I see this project working in 3 stages. The first stage is just what we're going to talk about today. Very basic stuff. Only, by the way, half of the first stage. The second stage, we're actually going to get the website up and running with maps. That's going to be fun to see eventually, hopefully. And the third stage, which will be continuously updating for the rest of time. That's the whole idea. So let's get right down to it. First, I'm going to show you a few examples of the past 44 years of gubernatorial races. I have to preface this by saying I may slip and call them goober races. That is an internal phrase. It's not very dignified, nor is it very respectful, but please understand, I mean all due respect to the office. It's just, come on, gubernatorial races. Think about it. It's obvious. So that would mean 1978 to 2022. Most of us were probably alive at some point in this time period, preferably. So that's a part of the reason why I picked that time frame. Also, it's easier. Gubernatorial races, why do we pick those? 3 things. One, it's easy. Elections are counted by county, so it's easy to datify that. Unlike legislative races where you have these weird districts that go all over the place, it can be a lot harder to trace that for now. Another reason is, unlike a presidency race or a U.S. congressional race, which are also statewide races in Wyoming, these things won't be overshadowed by national issues as much. Governor races tend to be more focused on state and local issues usually. And finally, and this is big for Wyoming, all governor races in Wyoming don't happen at the same time a president is running, which means you won't have the specter of the up ballot race to influence things usually. Now, again, we're going to address some of the problems with this later, but this is fine for now. So just bear with me. Big thing is potential. I've talked a little about this already before, but this is really important, is this fun italics I put down here. Helps us find the right questions to ask. I've always used this data for a lot of papers and reports, speeches, et cetera, and of course for the random bar nights where you're just talking to people. It's like, I wonder who won that race in 78. Yeah, I do wonder. This way, for one, it'd just be easier to find that, by the way, if you're having a good time with your friends. But crucially, looking at all these numbers, and I know, again, for a lot of you number people, this is an obvious point. But for someone like me, a historian, a real by-the-book person, numbers are fascinating, actually. You can really get a lot of discussion going just by looking at numbers. But let's go further. Okay, let's look at this. I know if you can use your binoculars or your opera glasses, please read the bottom. You don't need to. 1978, the blue line is Democrat. The red line will be the Republican. Down below here are all the counties. And as you can see, these really fun spikes. You notice how competitive this race was in 1978. The Democrat, Hirschler, won, by the way, that he was, of course, the incumbent. He was running against Republican Osland, who I think is from Gillette, actually. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. The fact is, this is a very, very competitive race. Now, let's compare this. Hold your breath for this to 2022, where you had the Democrat Livingston running against the incumbent Mark Gordon. Here, unlike before, where you could barely see the lines because things were so close, this looks more like a bunch of teeth closing in on itself, or like a kid's drawing. You can see the only real competitive place was, of course, Teton County. Looking at this by itself is kind of intimidating. I get it. So let's go a little bit deeper. Albany County, mainly because we're here, and also because, unlike the other three more examples I'm going to show you, Albany County doesn't fit the pattern. Oh, I know, now you're getting excited. Go ahead. Don't stand, but just sit on the edge of your seat a little bit. It's going to get better. This chart is done with the exact same way, but instead we just look at their vote totals from 78 all the way to 2022. Pretty interesting numbers here, besides one big spike in 2006. Quick question, who won in 2006? Anybody know? Oh, good guess, Governor Friedenthal. That's right, precisely. Which is a bit of an outlier, and we'll kind of notice that later. If you ever read the upcoming Experiments in Democracy journal, you'll get to learn more about that. So that's a fun little hint. Yep, you're welcome, Scott. Very big deal. I think I'm running out of time. So Campbell County, this is my home county. I love Campbell County. I get it, I know, but it's home is home. We always think fondly of home in my hometown. It's a good song, look it up. So same exact thing, 78 to 2022. Yeah, besides overall decline in Democratic vote share, interesting, but fairly conservative most of the time. Now let's go to one more county, brace yourself, Crook County, kind of the same story. Interesting, one more, Carbon County. Okay, give you all a look at that. Now let's start from the bottom. I'm going to ask you a question here in a minute, so just brace yourself. What do we notice about these charts? Carbon County, Crook County, Campbell County. So besides the fact that they're all C counties, I'm sorry for that. What do we notice? Anyone? A spike in 2006. That's good. I wasn't thinking of that, but you're right. There is a spike in 2006. Very good. Any other thoughts? Yes, exactly. And that's really where I'm leaning towards here. Besides the overall decline in Democratic vote share, there was a fun chart too where you could actually see that, and that was kind of depressing. So I decided not to put that in here. But precisely, the biggest thing I want to notice, hence that bigger gap, is 2010. That's when everything seems to change. Let's look at these charts one more time. Again, except for only 2 or 3 counties, Albany County, one of them, that doesn't fit this pattern. 20 Wyoming counties have this pattern, where in 2010, there's a huge gnawing gap. Then we get a few spikes here, but it's nothing like this. This is hundreds of votes, my friends. What happened? What happened indeed? And I think looking at it this way compels this sort of discussion. I mean, we already kind of had one here, and I think that's the core of a public democracy or public humanities, maybe. See, I threw that in there. Yep, you're welcome. Very good. Other considerations. So yes, I get it. I know some are thinking, what about population? Yes, I do not account in these charts Wyoming population or the population of counties. So we see these big percentages and it means one thing, but if we compare it to maybe the population of Campbell County shifted, that's something we need to consider. I totally agree, and I just haven't. Third parties as well. Around the early 2000s, we start seeing actual hard data from third-party candidates that actually showed up. They don't win any counties, of course, but they can serve as a spoiler. I did not include that here as well. And that's mainly for simplicity. Again, remember, this is the first half of the first stage. So give me a break, all right? We can talk about it later, or you can, debate forever. Doesn't matter. I'm all in. And of course, there's tech challenges. I know I talked a lot about maps. Notice there were no maps. Disappointment, I understand. But turns out colored pencil does not work well on PowerPoint. I know it's shocking, but true. I really struggled finding a good map. So in the future, and I'm pretty sure you're watching, my friend who's good with computers, we'll be talking soon. And if you're not, we'll be talking soon. Because eventually we're going to need a map. There's one thing to look at bar graphs, and imagine seeing counties with colors and maybe lights and no sound, because no one needs that, but colors is going to be cool, very much so. What's next? Yes, what's next? We talked a little bit about the steps. Yes, I know it's not the Democracy Live Journal. It, of course, is Experiments in Democracy. Please keep that in mind for the newest edition coming out soon, very soon. Very soon. Thank you. Yes. We're going to have an active website with complete charts and maps sometime, I'm hoping, by the end of the year. Please keep an eye out. There's going to be QR codes with little note cards. That's the plan. It's going to be really fun. And of course, public access means public. Everyone can access it. I want to keep going back to this point. The only way this works is if everybody gets to see this information. What it can do, it can inspire us. It can make us remember that the past was not always so one party. I can remember that change is constant. And that's the whole idea of the democratic process. And that's what I really hope to show here. I think that's it. Yes, that's it. Thank you.